Well, welcome everyone to today's webinar titled Payments, Addressing Challenges of Visibility, Information, Speed, and Security. This is Brian from Strategic Treasurer, and we're pleased you could join us as we discuss payment challenges and how newer developments help solve those issues. Our speakers for today are Mark Schuch, Senior Vice President and Director of Treasury Management Product Management at SouthState Bank, and Craig Jeffery, Founder and Managing Partner of Strategic Treasurer. Welcome, Mark and Craig, and I'll now turn the presentation over to you.
Hey, good morning, Mark. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us, whether you're in the U.S., you're a friend to the North in Canada, or in any of the other countries that have logged in. So thank you for showing up and spending some of your day or evening with us. We really appreciate it. And Mark, it's good to see you. We're from two different locations today. I'm outside of Atlanta, and Mark is sitting in.
I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina today.
So we're all in Eastern time in the U.S. So appreciate the intro, Brian. And let's get started with our agenda, our topics for discussion. You can see them on the screen. I'll give us a minute overview through this. On the pain points, we'll talk about speed, flexibility, insight, visibility, efficiency, and control as key pain points that can be solved. You can call them pain points, you can call them solutions, whether you view the glass as half full or the glass is half empty. On the speed side, the move to faster, there is certainly a great variation in terms of how fast certain payments move. Is it a factor for your payments? Is it a factor for some of your payments? It can be highly relevant for certain use cases. Nothing's getting slower. Not everything needs to be immediate, but there's certainly a lot of use cases for going faster. Certainly more use cases for becoming better payments. On the secure payment side, all I'll say at the intro here is that security in payments is foundational for each payment type. There's different ways to accomplish that. There's differences between all these new payment types and some of the legacy processes that exist. So we'll look at that at some length, some depth today. On messaging formats, we will dive not too deeply, but enough to see how these formats look different and how they act different and why that matters to you. If you're a payment professional, you're a treasury professional, you're looking at making changes to payments or supporting the new ISO 20022 standards, you'll get a little bit more insight as to why that matters. Then on to the visibility. The benefits of digital payments or enriched formats or ways when you transfer value and information, that if that's more complete, more rich, that will help prevent defects where people have to call. It allows for better use of information, data. That impacts cash forecasting, cash positioning, reconciliation. It's good all around. And then on the key takeaways, Mark and I will cover 4 areas, highlight them again at the end to leave you with a few things to think about from both the research and from our discussion. So with that, we'll begin with core challenges, and as prearranged on a call, Mark's going to cover the left side, I'll cover the right side of this chart about what are some of those core challenges, what are the opportunities of how long it takes, all the way to what people can see and how they do things. So Mark, so glad to do this with you.
Yeah, Craig, I absolutely enjoy it. And thank you for having me today, Craig. And welcome everybody. So very excited to chat with you all today. The first one there, speed, I think, from my perspective, I think one of the key areas is to make use of the digital tools that, whether it's in your organization, with your vendors, or with your financial institution. Because at the end of the day, as Craig mentioned, things are moving faster, but we need to figure out how to integrate in a thoughtful manner the accounting systems so that we can deliver and receive information in a timely manner. And as we'll talk about in a little bit about the various formatting, the new systems or the new format has much data, very rich data, and it's exciting to see how the applications will be able to use that. And by being able to deliver and receive this information, you'll have incredible payee satisfaction. So I think that is really the key at the end of the day, is how to bring this information into your systems as quickly as possible and as efficiently as possible, which kind of gets me to the next one. I'm not here to automate just for the sake of automation. But I do think that that's inevitable for all of our applications. And so it requires, I think, another thoughtful approach to reviewing what your applications can do. Do you have all of the right partners at the table? Oftentimes, things are led by a certain group, and we need to broaden that. One of the things that I feel very important or that's very impactful is bringing your teams together and having the right team members, whether it's from a IT or accounts payable or infosec, to evaluate what is necessary to automate. And when you do some of this automation, you're going to reduce errors, you improve accuracy, and it's helpful in predicting the payment scheduling, which again helps your suppliers, helps your treasurers, so that you can understand where your cash flow is. And last but not least for me, security. I think this one is one of those areas that we can build, the better mousetrap. But at the end of the day, a lot of it is up to our individuals. We need to train our staff on what to look for. There's a lot of new phishing techniques occurring out there. There's a lot of different scamming that's occurring. And we have to continue to educate our teammates so that they're aware of the latest trends that are occurring. We often hear of impersonators pretending to be a bank employee or a support employee and trying to gain access to your system, either through IDs or passwords and so forth. So be ever vigilant on those kinds of things. But back to the fraud and risk management, it's important that the info security teammates are involved, and your compliance teams when rolling out the new payment channels or implementation of new platforms. I would include vendors in those discussions because they can oftentimes provide guidance to you on what they're seeing in the marketplace and how they've assisted other organizations in identifying fraud and building out solutions to prevent the fraud or in earlier detection. So again, look at your internal partners, look to your external partners. Continuous training is so important with security.
Yeah, thanks,
Craig,
Mark.
You for flexibility.
Yeah, excellent. So thanks for talking through that. You gave an example of involving multiple people in the organization. That's really crucial for efficiency, both within the organization and then payments, receiving payments, sending payments involves people outside the organization as well. So that's some of the perspective that's really helpful as we look at what are the challenges, what are the opportunities. On the flexibility side, what do we mean by flexibility? How can we adapt? How can we adapt to changes that occur in a very manageable way? If you're familiar with changes to the payment system for checks, wires, and ACH. There hasn't been a lot of changes to it for many, many years and decades. It's the same layout. Maybe there's a couple new payment types in the ACH arena up until recently. And you could send a certain amount of information. There wasn't much flexibility. There'd be some reference fields or addenda fields that you could put information in. Flexibility also and must consider changes in what information needs to be sent for payments to be acceptable. And so different jurisdictions, different central banks start requiring more and more information and say, now you have to include this information or that information and address information. And now it can't just be in an address field. It has to be number, floor, street name, whatever the information is. And so it continues to require additional adaptation. So you're either changing all of your underlying systems with a legacy format to something that's newer, or it involves using a format that's very flexible. So the newer payment formats have the ability to provide a lot of information, detail locations. Many of you have probably heard about ISO 20022 and how a lot of the communication between banks and the payment platforms are all moving and have moved to ISO 20022, that XML version that's been implemented. So they're communicating in that manner. So all this is to say that we need flexibility with payments because some use cases demand faster speed. They require more information, and flexibility is, a prerequisite for scalability. If you have a flexible system, you have a greater ability to scale, and that's a key element. So that ties into efficiency. It ties into efficiency very well. On the insight slide, we've got the little light bulb inside the head. This is how can we make the right types of decisions? Well, we need information. We need information internally to decide what's going on from a forecasting perspective, how we can resolve issues that may create reconciling items. And now that we have more information, we can do that. But the fact that there's better data helps us in our reporting and our analysis, our ability to model. It also helps our trading partners. We don't provide enough information. That's going to create a defect. They're going to call us or reach out to us in an exception manner. That exception or defect makes life harder. It prevents you from being as scalable. It interrupts them and you, makes the business more costly. So the ability to have more data helps with insight and helps with the efficiency side as well. So as we can see, each of these, almost all of these have overlap one area to another. On the visibility side, visibility is what you can see, but it's also what your trading partners can see. If I have visibility to all payments coming in and going out, I know when they're going to settle, as opposed to it might settle at a certain period of time based upon payment type. Now I know when I'm making my payments. My trading partners know when they're receiving payments, and vice versa. I know when I'm getting paid. It's certain, it's stated, it's known and shown. That helps me with my cash positioning, my forecasting. And visibility helps with compliance, tracking the status of payments. Each of those, if I have better visibility, I have better compliance. If I can see, and my trading partners can see, and my banks can see all the information that's necessary for a payment to go through, that will make it move much more quickly, much more effectively, much more smoothly. So visibility, insight, flexibility, as well as speed, efficiency, and security. These are some of the core challenges and the core hope for things for payments. Mark, before I move off on that, I spoke a lot. I don't know if you had anything else on here, or should we move right to speed of payments?
Well, I'd like to just point out where both of us said, it's both internal and external partners. And I think to me that is an important element when deciding upon the type of payment channels. Are we satisfying our internal partners? Are we listening to our external partners, whether they're our suppliers or vendors? So I think that was spot on, Craig. Great. For speed of payments, I think, the one thing that a lot of us need to look at here is, how to maximize our payables and receivables processing. And to do that, we do need to look at what are the ever-changing payments environment and the payment options that are available. And then compare and contrast the speed of the payments channels to what, you're all comfortable with. Ideally, you'll review your environment and support a mix of payment channels, because I think that's the key. There's not a one size fits all here. It's, what are y'all comfortable with? What are we comfortable with? And how do we implement those payment channels? And this helps you. I kind of like look at it, Craig, that there. I'm not going to do everything through ACH, for example. I'm going to have a mix of regular ACH, same day ACH, some checks, some real time payments, just because I feel there's a need to, for lack of better words, spread the wealth, and that I'm not, hooked into just a single platform. And again, I have different needs. For a check, I look at that as probably the most inefficient. It takes days for that check to get printed in the mail, and then it may sit at somebody's desk for several days. So you don't know when the money will leave your account. So it's really hard to maximize your cash flow with check payments. And check payments are very prone to fraud. They can get taken out of the mailbox, or received when they're received. So I think that's a challenge. I know checks haven't really decreased a whole lot in the past couple of years, but I think we're seeing the advent of some of those decreases here in the next few years. ACH, excuse me, with the low value payments, it's a workhorse platform. It's very reliable. I've used ACH for many decades in my past experiences. So, I think it's, very suited for high volume, low value payments, super cost effective. And typically, it's a quick turnaround with 1 to 3 days, predictable, because you're able to put the settlement date on there. So I think from a cash flow perspective, ACH is a very good option for that. Wires are very well suited for your high value payments, time sensitive payments for both domestic and international. Typically suited again for large dollar transactions, but it's something that's going to take minutes, usually 5 to 10 to 15 minutes, depending upon the origination and receiving bank organizations. So, but again, because of the cost associated with it, you may not use wires as much. Some of the newer technologies or newer payment channels that are coming on board, or have come on board since I think 2016, for same day ACH, have seen a lot of volume with same day ACH, typically at same banking day. I see a lot of urgent payments, Craig. Payroll and returns are 2 or 3 areas that I see are good business cases or use cases for same day ACH. And that volume has continued to increase over the years. Real-time payments, for those of you who may not know, that's supported by the clearinghouse. FedNow is supported by the Fed. The send has been available, I guess, since last year, I think it was, Craig. And a lot of banks have been implementing it, usually on one or the other platform. Several banks have been doing it on both platforms. Typically, I've been seeing bill payments, high value bill payments. Payroll, interestingly enough, has been going out on real-time payments or instant payments. I do see a lot of vendor disbursement, but more on the urgency side of like, I need to get this one out. And again, we're talking that this takes, less than a minute to get those transactions out the door. So very fast and very good at what it does through either the clearinghouse or the Fed platform. I think, some of the key features, it's very convenient. The speed at which it's taking place, as Craig mentioned earlier, these different payment channels go from, slowest to fastest. And we see, again, a mix of all types of payment channels. And again, I think that's probably, the best approach is what is the mix that you all are comfortable with within your organization to identify what are the strategies for an ACH versus a same-day ACH or a wire versus an instant payment. I think those are the questions that you need to ask yourselves and, understand, that what is convenient, how do you manage your cash flow is incredibly important. And as Craig mentioned earlier, with the instant payments, it's now with the ISO 20022 format, and it includes an incredible amount of data in it for your trading partners to be able to reconcile that information. So to me, those are really key elements. It really helps with reconciling the data. So I think that we'll see more and more customers as we get comfortable with real-time payments and FedNow. We typically like to refer to it as instant payments. And, I think that's going to take time, just like same-day ACH came through over ACH as well. So, Craig, back to you.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks for stepping through those. That was phenomenal. There's a question in the Q&A box says, since ACH has same-day ACH and credits can be originated 2 days prior to the effective entry date, why isn't it 0 to 2 days? So that's a great question. So if you look at the second row, we have ACH 1 to 3 days. We just broke it out because same-day ACH, while still an ACH, it has different windows and some other components. So it could be, if you group those together, you could say 0 to 2 days. I mean, you can do future value dated items as well. But we broke it out as well because there's different limits for same day ACH. So at some point, it'll just be ACH 0, 1, and 2 days in our minds. But on this chart, we broke it out that way. So great question. A couple other things for those who are outside the US, as well as for those who may not understand how banks settle funds in a detailed manner. So you're a corporate AP person or treasury person who's moving funds around. Let me just explain a couple things. So most countries have the central bank is the payment settlement platform. So they have systems that do that. In the US, we have both the central bank or the Fed offering platforms for clearing checks, for ACH through Nacha, for wire systems, and then also now for FedNow. So through the Fed, the central bank is a clearing and settlement system for that. We also have consortiums in the US. So this would be, there's multiple wire systems platforms that work, one through the clearinghouse and one through the Fed. So the clearinghouse is a consortium of a bunch of banks, and real-time payments is part of the clearinghouse. So many banks own the clearinghouse, so it allows them to settle as a consortium between banks, and ACH can settle through some of the different mechanisms. I just say that because there's multiple opportunities, and it's easy to understand the drive for efficiency and cost benefit in an economy that's 28 trillion. There's a lot of banking activity, and so it can support some competition in these payment schemas and frameworks that exist. So it's very helpful to understand that. So yeah, so a couple things there. See some other comments about some updates to our chart. So maybe we'll update the chart, get it a little bit tighter before we send it out. But thanks for those comments. Hope that helps shed a little bit more light on it. So yeah, we'll move to our first poll question. So we have what are the challenges of payments? What are the greatest payment challenges for your organization? So select all that apply. So you could select, the first 5, you could select other or unsure, or I guess you could select all 6. So go ahead and select those things that make the most sense for your organization. So go ahead and answer to the best of your ability, and then go ahead and hit submit. If you can't see the poll or quiz on your screen, try Alt-Tab or look in the chat box. Brian has put some helpful notes, and he puts those out there to see, to let you find a way to get that and to take that. So we are going to, we're going to say if we have, let's say if we have 125 people who type the word SouthState or poll in the chat box, we will send all the poll results out with this deck. Comes to you within a week, and we'll go ahead and do that. So I'll give everybody a chance to complete it. On the ACH side, a comment was made. It should reflect the Fed and the Electronic Payments Network, or EPN. They definitely don't go through NACHA. That's a governing board. Well, that's a whole nother. That's a more lengthy discussion. But yeah, we will reflect that too. We will update that to reflect the Fed and EPN, just to kind of build that out. But the focus there is just to focus on speed. So we look forward to that. So we have the answers now, Mark. Mark, the greatest challenges, number 1, security and fraud prevention. You talked about that. Automation and efficiency. You also talked about that. So you hit two of the biggest items. Any comments through this that you'd like to talk through?
Yeah, I think, to me, the automation and efficiency is always the challenge, because you're competing dollars, project dollars, if you will, right, Craig, to improve X, Y, or Z. So that one doesn't surprise me that it's that high. And security and fraud is certainly always at the top 1 or 2, just because, it's so prevalent today, and, it's scary. Just with everything that it opens you up to. So that doesn't surprise me that those are 1 and 2 in this poll.
Okay. Yeah. So speed. It's interesting. We're talking about speed. Speed is just one factor, right? Speed of payments, 28%. That's one of the greatest payment challenges, right? There's certainly use cases. Rarely does every payment have to have the greatest level of speed, but there's almost always use cases for that. And then data quality and reconciliation, a little low in my view, because the better data we have, the more enriched data we have, the better it is for so much of what we do between our partners, or whether we use business intelligence tools to analyze what goes on, whether we're looking to capture more information for improved forecasting, or posting, or reconciliation. There's a lot that can be done there. So thanks everybody for answering, and we will continue on. So let us jump to the next chart. This one is from a recent survey, and what's useful about that, there's a couple of things that are useful about that, is to see that there is a ongoing trend to use or intent to use faster payment technologies in this case, such as same-day automated clearinghouse or real-time payments. So 1 year difference, there's a 9-point bump. That's nice. That's a nice trend, nice growth. It is really focused. It's really focused for having faster payments in these different mechanisms. More people have use cases. They're putting those use cases to work using some of these faster payment mechanisms. So that continues to grow. So there we go. So let's continue on, and we will look on securing payments. And this one we agreed to. I would take the top half and do the old style payments. I'm saying old style. Some of them are certainly well used, and we'll go ahead and let Mark covers the bottom three, tracking those along. So, what are the controls offered on the check side? Well, we look at data. How do people commit fraud? Well, they capture certain elements of banking data and replicate it. They might be able to get in the middle of payment transmissions, which is more rare but still significant. Or they can trick people into making changes, which if they trick you and you're using any of these payment methods, there might not be as much of a difference for what the issue is on the fraud side. But check, what's the security level of checks? It's low to moderate. Your banking information's on there. It's easy to take a image of a check, recreate it. There are security features. There's some good methods of securing the physical devices, microprinting, watermarks. Your banks, like SouthState, offer services like Positive Pay, Match Positive Pay, imaging, control disbursements to track and see where these items come through on a daily basis, be able to report those immediately. If your banks offer security services, you should get them. I'm not saying don't argue for better pricing, but you should get the security services that your banks offer. They're to protect you. The banks do not get rich on security services. But looking at checks, not only having Positive Pay, but having checks that are hard to wash or to replicate so they stand out matters significantly. On the ACH side, or automated clearinghouse side, the security level is moderate. There are a number of changes that NACHA is working on to continue to strengthen the security. They require encryption or tokenization of bank accounts if you process over a certain very high volume number of payments via the network. And so tokenization means replacing the bank account information with a token that then gets matched up on the back end. You can still do the transfer, but if someone gets the data, they get a token, and you can't transfer with a token by itself, right? You're not going to be able to enter it into the system. There are returns for debit reversals. It's ACH used to be considered extremely secure, but as checks have diminished slowly, this has been a new area of focus for criminals. So ACHs are good payment methods, but you need to use the different security features. There's pre-authorization, electronic pre-authorization. There's the equivalent of an ACH Positive Pay. Those are good features to use. On the wire side, the security level is high in that I don't think there's any banking system that doesn't require, dual factor authentication, usually segregation of duties. But as long as you have authentication and verification of who you're paying and any changes to that information, you can do pretty well. Every method you transmit to the bank for wires, if you're using a portal, it's always encrypted. I don't know of any banks that will let you send an unencrypted file for wire generation. So it'll always be encrypted, at least in the transmission portion. And there's cutoff, there's approval controls, there's validation levels. But this is an area that is still crucial. Wires have finality of settlement. When they're sent, they're final. You might have the ability to get back something that's fraudulent if the other bank works with you before the money has left the account that they control. But wires are significant, and they're used in fraud significantly because of the finality of payments and how quickly they can move. But this is an area that there's high level of security, but you have to use all the features that are relevant to that, including messaging. I won't go into a case that the Central Bank of Bangladesh had a problem. They had security features, notifications of when payments were sent or triggered, and the criminals got in the middle and they were able to enter payments. And they also had a process that would delete confirmation information coming back, which would alert someone to, we didn't originate these payments. Why are we getting a confirmation? So they deleted those messages. And that's the area where you have to be vigilant across your systems. I'll turn it back over to you, Mark, for more comments.
Great. No, thank you. I think though it's interesting. I think notifications are so important. Alerts within your online banking platform. I think it's important to monitor. What your cash flow is, just so that you're seeing whether it's the checks or ACH or wires or instant payments in those transactions through your system. So I'm with you. I think having dual approval, Craig, is so important. I think having Craig, enter the information and Mark approve it. I think those are just table stakes to be able to ensure you're controlling what you can control and getting alerted to the basic information. Same day ACH, similar to ACH, it has obviously the moderate. It's a faster settlement that we referenced earlier. Where there's 3 windows a day that same day ACH can go out during a business day, and so those items, will move quicker. But again, very similar encryption capabilities. I do see a lot of customers that use ACH and same day ACH. They are sending quote batch files, Craig, and those are typically over a secure protocol. So a lot of security around the ACH, even though it's been around for a long time, but just a lot of hardened security around the transmission of that data. With the RTP and FedNow, we're seeing a lot of sophistication in the sanctions screening, so that is improved. That has improved over the years. There's an incredible amount of audit trail information with this from end to end now that did not exist, with ACH or wires or checks. So I think that is a bonus for everyone right now. Real-time monitoring, because this happens within seconds or a minute. I always call it near real time, right, Craig? Because it doesn't happen instantaneous, but it happens very quick. You have the ability to see those transactions move from point A to point B within 30 seconds or whatnot. The detailed transaction analysis goes back to your comments earlier about the ISO 20022 formats. There's just an incredible amount of data richness there that can be analyzed as part of the security and fraud. And honestly, I would ask your partners when you start implementing the instant payments, what are their concerns? What are they doing to protect you, whether it's through the sanction screening, through the transaction analysis? How are they monitoring those transactions? And then, as you mentioned, there's various tokenized processing and authentication that will detect the fraud activity occurring. So a lot of great new features as part of the instant payments. And again, look to your partners to help you. I still go back, Craig, to to help prevent fraud. Train your teammates, and how do you verify sources of information? So I think that's really a critical, because your teammates are on the front line. They're taking the calls from the vendors or the customers or getting new payment instructions. I think that's important for you to train the teammates on what is occurring. As you mentioned earlier, implementing dual approval. I feel that that's key in any payment type. Stay involved and informed. Keep apprised of developments in the fraud landscape. Participate in webinars like this that Strategic Treasurer leads. I mean, a lot of great information can be found here. And partner with your vendors about new approaches. Share ideas in user groups. I find, I'm part of several user groups, and we share all kinds of information, the good and bad. And it's great on, what we can do to improve a process or how to learn from each other. So those are some of my thoughts, Craig.
Yeah, thanks. It's PIN payments are such a challenge due to fraud. Their criminals are sophisticated and come after us. Our second poll question is, which payment types do you expect to increase at your organization in the next 12 months? So either start using or increase the volume. So if it's static or if it's declining, don't select them. So ACH, same day ACH, wires, checks, real-time payments, FedNow, cards, and then other or insure. And we just need 43 more South states or pull in the chat box to send all the information out. So maybe we can get that done, take care of that, and that will be fun. So, yep, excellent. And Brian will also post some links to SouthState Bank and Strategic Treasurer. SouthState Bank, it's interesting to look at their footprint. It's like North Carolina, all the way across to Texas. It's like, what week is it? Which bank did you guys buy, Mark? It's a continually changing footprint. So
Yes, it is. It's evolving. Yes, sir.
so it's good to follow them, to keep up on LinkedIn. Encourage you to do that as well. All right, and we have the responses. Growth, ACH, same day ACH, wire, about 1 in 6. Checks, it shows up as 0%. One company indicated they would increase it to organization, but that's below the threshold to appear as a whole number. I don't know if people can see all the numbers or just the percentage. So that's cool. And then RTP 43%, FedNow 14, cards 25, and other or insure. I think this is just good information to have. If you have any insight on this, that'd be great, Mark. I'm tapped out on it. It's just good info.
Well, I agree with ACH. It's obviously, Craig, you and I've been around for a few years, and we know that ACH is the workhorse. So I think, more as people move from checks, that's the natural evolution, is from checks to ACH. So agree with that one. The one that I find interesting, Craig, is the cards. I think I thought that might be a little higher, just because I think there's a lot of opportunity with the commercial card and purchasing card. Yep, glad to see instant payments really moving up there with the 43% for RTP. So that's exciting that a number of you are looking at that.
The one thing that surprises me is that none of these items are above 50%. I would think that there would be at least something that's above 50%, but that's just a guess. Interesting. Thank you, everybody, for responding. Brian will tabulate and let me know how many people have responded with SouthState or full. I've seen some come through the Q&A area, so it's all good. Now, if you're multitasking, don't multitask now, if you would. On payment messaging, I wanted to talk about 2 different payment types. The left-hand side, we're using the Swift message type, where it's MT101 for essentially wires, and then MT103 wires or funds transfers between banks. They're essentially the same format. And you may be more familiar with Nacha formats or FedWire layouts. They tend to be delimited by different types of pipes or filters, commas, etc. So what's the difference? And I don't want to go into it as much as we do when we go through payment formats and explain it. But I'll just point some things out. On the right-hand side, where it says ISO 20022, and that's the official way to say it if you're in Swift, is to call it ISO 20022, because so the numbers don't get confusing. But ISO 20022 is the messaging standard, describes how it works, and then all the implementations of ISO 20022, to my knowledge, have always been using XML. And so if you're using ISO 20022 for payments, you'll use a format called pane.001 most likely. If you're getting inbound information for information reporting, it'll be CAMT, C-A-M-T for cash management. PAIN for payment stands for payment instructions, the first two letters, P-A and I-N. I didn't come up with those abbreviations. We can always question why people call something PAIN, the pain of payments, but that's for another session, maybe after work at some point. But the one thing I want to point out is the first type of payments, the legacy formats. So if you see on the left-hand side, there's delimiters. Here's a section 70, and then there's delimiters between them. They have carriage returns or enters that tell you when the record's ending. Space oftentimes determines the value. So you see a bunch of numbers strung out here. Now, if you look at what can be included, there's limitation. It's all that text gets dumped into fields, and then you have to parse it out in a particular way. Now, if you look at ISO 20022, so XML, or extensible markup language is, you probably heard the phrase, is tagged. What does that mean? And so you see this bolded P1002, so party, and you have a CINV, so it's a code for the creditor party, or you've got other numbers that relate to certain types of transactions. But the party or whatever is kind of like if you go to an event and it says, hello, my name is Craig, the name and then the name with the slash at the front says this is the tag. So Craig is the record, the item, and then the Craig and then slash Craig, name and slash name says what's contained in that. So that's the tag. So the tag comes with it. So name, Craig is the example. And so there's the whole structure here of how it goes. You might say, this is hard to read. And it is, but it's also easy to see. The system can tell, hey, this is a number. This is the type of code for the type of transaction that goes on. Here's reference fields. You can see address information, etc. Why is this an advantage? You're showing me a bunch of junk on a screen. Isn't this just as good? And this is not just as good. Well, you may be able to look at this and say 2020-013, that's probably January 30th, 2020. Is that the settlement date? Is that the origination date? You know it's a date, but you can have all that information described with tags that comes along with it. This is more efficient as far as transmitting data, but that doesn't matter today because we can transmit massive amounts of data almost instantaneously. Now, I'm going to wrap this up quickly for the purposes of time, but the fact is, if you add more information into some of the existing formats that are delimited, you stick something else in there, and if the system's reading the fifth position as, transaction number, and you stick something else in there, now everything's off, and the system will append. If you add additional information here, you add more fields. Someone says you have to include the floor number in the address. Well, you could include floor number. If the receiving system doesn't use it, it just won't pull it. But now you could pull it if it can use the floor number. So it allows you to flex and adapt the system over time. It allows you to save the information at a very granular level and therefore use it in more systems. All of that is to say, the requirements are growing and the ISO 20022 format helps the process more significantly. And that's how banks are exchanging information with other banks through their clearinghouses. So you may be sending stuff in old formats, But the key thing is it is a very rich format. It allows you to grow and expand and adapt more readily. So that brings us to some of the benefits. I explained some of them. I cheated. I got some of this slide, but Mark, why don't you start us off and I'll wrap up if there's
Yeah,
anything left.
I was like, you're cheating on me there, Craig.
I'm sorry.
So no, you're good. What I took away, first of all, the techie in me loved that slide. So I think it was a great slide, Craig. But I think the takeaway from that slide for me was the flexibility and that the ISO is designed to evolve over time and to allow all kinds of information in that. And I think that's the first bullet there is the increased transparency. I know we've mentioned it a couple times, Craig, but the robust data that's provided within the standards, it enables the banks and the businesses, the organizations to identify trends and provide improved services. The more data you can have, the less time I have to spend on reconciliation. So I think that that's an incredible benefit as part of the ISO 20022 standard. The fraud prevention capabilities, which we talked about a little bit earlier, and the reporting activities that can occur with that data, I think is very important. Moving on to the automation, I see that it reduces delays because it is a consistent format, right, Craig? And there's it's the standard that we're all supposed to adhere to, and I'm seeing a lot of that occurring right now that we don't have the unstructured data or incomplete or inconsistency. It's very closed in terms of this is how it has to be formatted. So I think that that's going to be a benefit that we'll reap for years to come to be able to support the new richness of the data. I think another advent of it is that one of the things that we and our vendors are looking at is the API capability within the ISO 20022, and it's able to support the movement of that data through APIs, and whether that's information reporting or payment information. I think that that's going to spur along the various activities that we can do with APIs. Let's see here. What else do I have? I was looking at my notes. Again, the structured, and I don't want to repeat it, but I just think that that is so important, having that structure and being able to support the reconciliation that we need down the road. And I'll turn it over to you, Craig, for your resilience.
Thanks for going through that. I'm going to just jump to improve working capital because I think the other areas, more data seems obvious to help better automation, transparency. But I just wanted to leave a note for the sake of time on improved working capitals. How does better data and improved processes help working capital? There's a outsized improvement when you have better data and better processes with your trading partners on working capital. And when you have more errors, there's an outsized negative impact on working capital. It slows the process down, not just doesn't add a day, it adds multiple days and makes it more difficult to communicate, to resolve things. It not only creates more defects, but those defects slow up the process of receiving payments and make it harder to operate. So that's something for everyone to take note of. Now we're on our final poll, and we're in a sprint to the end now, and we'll be quick. And so, improving payments. What are your organization's top priorities for improving payments in the next year? So go ahead and answer those, and we will show those briefly. We won't comment on those, but we'll show those. And we have enough responses. We will include those in the deck that is sent out. So I'll start with this slide. I'll cover the checks and let Mark handle the digital. What's good about checks? What's a challenge with checks is when a check is in transit in the mail, nobody knows where it is. It's somewhere. We don't know when it's going to settle because we don't know when the other party is going to receive it or deposit it. And then that creates, where's the payment? I don't know. We sent it. And then when is it going to clear? And so neither party can forecast when that's going to hit. There's not an electronic trail. When do I get paid? When will I get paid? Where's the money? How about I give a call and create an exception process? So those are the few things to consider about visibility. Checks are not very visible. Check and list have information once you receive them, but is vastly inferior to other methods. So yeah, I'll turn it back over to Mark to cover digital. What do we see there?
Yeah, no, I think one of the areas with the visibility that is gained through this is, improving vendor relationships. I think that, by looking at what your payment cycles are and streamlining your payment processes, that will add to the strengthening of the vendor relationship and exchanging the data that's in the data format for ISO 20022. I think there's, once you start looking at the data, you're going to identify the areas that have efficiency improvements. What may have worked for ACH needs to be tweaked for instant payments. And I think, you'll start looking at some of those as well. And honestly, when you have more visibility, you're going to reduce the manual errors because you have more accurate, more timely information, and it gets that ability for your finance folks to look at and analyze the financials that are coming in and do more tracking. And again, it goes back to, how do I improve my cash flow or my working capital management? The more data I have, the more knowledge that I have, and I'm able to determine which payment types that I want to use for payments X, Y, or Z. Back to you.
Yeah, I think you'll cover the first two. I'll cover the last two.
Yep. Well, I think for me, there's a call to action, and it's like, how do I blend payments or blend the payment channels? So I think that's an important question to look at within your organization, and honestly, to when you're talking to your trading partners and your financial institutions. What are your needs and develop use cases so that you can promote instant payments or ACH or wires or same day ACH. So I think again, looking at those partnerships and identifying those use cases. And then by looking at your needs holistically, you can optimize the speed, the cost, and improve the customer expectations. So, and then, as I mentioned earlier, Craig, I think, the idea should be to reduce the dependency on any single payment channel.
Great. So the last two pillars here are data richness and payment security. I'm going to believe that everybody can read what those things say. I'll just say one thing about data richness and moving to a better format like ISO 20022. Move to this as soon as you can for all new activity and when you have to make changes on payments. That will save you time down the road. Even if your bank supports older formats going forward, make those changes because that is the way to go. And with that, I want to thank you, Mark, and everyone for being with us. And I'll turn it back over to Brian, who has a few announcements.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Mark. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. The CTP credits, today's webinar slides, and a recording of today's webinar will be sent to you within 5 business days. And for more on securing payments, be sure to download the Payment and Security and Fraud Prevention ebook by clicking the link in the chat box. Thank you, and we hope you have a good rest of the day.